Hey everybody, my name is Domestic Blend here on YouTube, and on the Obsidian forums I'm Ganrich. The plan here is to do a few videos, 11 in particular, or to be precise, to show off the classes during character creation and up to level 5, which is what you start the backer beta at. There will be no spoilers. At worst case scenario, I have to do a little combat to show an ability off, and there are ample targets right where you spawn in, so if you're worried about spoilers, don't. All you'll know is there's a few NPCs standing in an area. So I would not do any talking or anything like that. So the principle, or the idea behind this is there are a lot of people without the beta that might not know exactly what the classes are because there's not a lot of information, but this video is going to go through all their abilities. For the most part, I might miss one or two because of circumstances. Like with some of the classes like the Chanter, they level up kind of like the Sorcerer does in D&D, so I won't have access to all of their abilities on a single playthrough. I would have to do multiple playthroughs or multiple things and then tile the video together, and I don't really have the equipment or the time to do that. So, but it's the basic. This is just to give you a basic idea of the idea behind the class, at least from what I see, some of their strengths and weaknesses, how to play them, and some of the ideas that I have for certain classes to make them play differently. If you're a Druid, which is the first video we're doing here, you're a Druid to make it different from somebody else's Druid. So, without further ado, let's go through character creation here. It's a pretty decent character creation. There's a few oddities in the way it works. I have one grievance in particular with the way the character creation works. I think it's something they'll fix though, so it's not that big a deal. And we'll just stick with male. I'm going to go with Godlike today for the Druid because Nature Godlike makes sense, but it also works because Wellspring of Life here allows all stamina regeneration that occurs over time happens 25% faster for Nature like Godlike, so it makes things quicker. And the Druid has heal over time spells, so that actually plays off Druid really well. Would also work. I'm not sure if it just makes it regen faster, or I'm assuming it does. So like certain classes that have any regenerating principles that work on a timer would benefit from this, and you can, as they've shown off, pick your stature based on the other body types. We're just going to stick with human, and today is the Druid. And just to go ahead and give you a heads up, the next two videos will most likely be the Ranger and the Barbarian, the Woodland. I call them the Woodland classes, although Barbarian's kind of forced into that. Wild Strikes. What Wild Strikes does in theory, and I'm not exactly sure how it works because we don't have tooltips, but I think what it does is it lets you have a damage focus type. So if you want to be a character that uses a lot of corrosive damage, you would pick this and use corrosive spells whenever, you know, a target doesn't have huge resistances to that. Or if you wanted to focus a lot on crushing damage, you could go with crushing here, a Wild Strike Crush, or what have you. Now I would assume these carry over to animal forms, so obviously if you wanted to be a more physical person, like then focus on wild shape, then going with wild strike, slash, or pierce, or crush would be the way to go. And if you were going to be more play on the spellcaster side, you would go with one of the elements. Although there are spells that crush, pierce, and slash, there are more of the elements than there are, at least in my opinion. And from the first 3 spell levels, that is. So we're going to go with. And I'll just go ahead and cover animal forms. I do believe they all will have a different damage type to play off this. So if you were going to go with something that has crushing damage, then you would go with that. Or piercing damage, you would go with pierce, and slashing, you would go slash, respectively, depending on your animal form you were planning. So there's a lot of cool things you have to plan out with the Druid, and I like that a lot. But today we're just going to go with the spells because it doesn't really matter. We're not doing a whole lot of combat in this video. And shapeshift werewolves are cool. So Might is a popular one. It increases damage size. The Druid actually has, I think, a large amount of AoEs. It's like obscene how much AoE they have. Not to say a mage or a wizard couldn't have an equal level of AoE, and they do, but they have a better mix than the Druid does. The Druid is a lot of AoE, so intelligence or intellect is a good call with Druids, in my opinion. We aren't going to do a whole lot of anything, so it really doesn't matter. I'm going to do a little combat at the end of the video to show off the wild form, because you can't do it outside of combat. So let's do dexterity. That increases our chance to hit. We'll have some interrupt capability. We'll toss a few more points into might to make him hit harder. This is my one grievance, so I have 10 resolve because of selecting my stats. Well, I get 1 resolve from Adir here, and now I'm at 9 resolve. So they need a blank spot, or a blank spot, I apologize for that, a blank spot here, so that they need to force you to pick one, but they need a blank spot so that we don't get the bonus at the beginning of character creation. That is one of, there's a few other bugs in character creation, but this one's just the silliest one. I mean, it's just a pain. Like, you just have to plan. You know you're going to have one less resolve if you don't stick with Adir. So, it's not a big deal today. So, we want to go, let's go with something, I don't like, we'll just stick with it. And this doesn't matter. So, here, we're going to show off a little bit of the nature godlikes features. There aren't that many, actually. You don't have any skin options. You don't have any hair options. And you only have 3 head options, and no facial hair nor any hair, different hair styles. So, basically you have this one, and that last guy right there. It doesn't really matter at this point in the video, and neither does this, but you don't have any color options with hair or with skin, which is kind of odd. And this is, beta. This is one of those things that could change very easily. I don't expect to have any hair selection in terms of templates. That's fine because we have horns with the nature godlike, but that is what it is. So onto the Druid. We'll at least have verisimilitude here, and at least pick a godlike portrait. And we don't have an option on that, but today is the Druid, and we are moving on. So we're gonna go ahead and level up, and I'm not really gonna, I'm gonna show you the talents when we hit 3, but we'll worry about spells once we're ready to cast them. So, and we're not gonna pick anything here. If you want to know anything about the skills, they go over them really well. The wiki covers them okay, and they go over them really well in the Gamescom videos. So if you want to check that out, check that out. Actually, there is one thing I want to point out. So like we started at 2 survival, so with the points we put in, we're already at level 6. And that's because if you notice, we have 1 point in lore, but we're 0 of 1, 0 of 1, 0 of 1 with athletics. It would take us the exact same number of points, which is 1, to go to 1 athletics, that it would take us to go to 2 lore. So when you get those bonuses, actually have some meaning. It takes you less points to climb based on your class, which is pretty neat. And here are our talents. You get all the weapon-focused talents here, which if you want to have like a more melee-oriented Druid, or even use something like a blunderbuss or a bow, you can do that, and you can get bonuses here with that. You get almost all the classes that have some melee prowess, and then some that don't, get hold line, which is, it's a standard feat, which increases their engagement limit. I do believe that means they can engage more targets. So like the fighter, obviously the fighter, if he had an engagement limit of 2 and picked this up, he would be able to engage up to 3 other combatants at a time. That's a good example. Then we have bonus Shapeshift Wolf. You get 3 per day at level 5. I'm not sure if that picks up over time, but this basically gives you a bonus to Shapeshift, an extra 1 per rest. So it's pretty cool. Greater Wild Strike Corrode. This increases the damage of your corrode. Obviously, we don't know by how much, but that's what I'm going to select today. It's always going to be the element that you chose at character creation. So if you went with corrode, this will be corrode. The greater will be corrode here. You can't, as far as I can see, you can't kind of get any kind of diversity out of the class in that regard. So this is almost like a school of magic with the wizards in the Infinity Engine games. So it's a pretty cool feature. The Druid, and like I said, I'm completely unsure how Wild Strike works, so but it is obviously a cool ability. Make the Druid really neat and versatile. Like, you'll be able to make two or three different Druids that have nothing in common with one another outside of their spell list, which they would play fundamentally differently. So what we're going to do, we're not going to have spoilers. We're going to come back here and fight these guys to show the shapeshift, but that's it. The next area is just a wilderness area, and that is all. So, and we're just going to stand here, and I'm going to go over the Druid spells and then cast them, and to show you the animations. So, and then we'll rest here and do it again. So. We'll be able to see, hopefully, all of the level 1 and 2 spells, but I might miss a few of these, because there's not it requires 3 here that I have to be in combat for, and I just won't be able to show them all. Probably won't show Beetle Shell, that's the one I won't show, but we'll show the animations. We have Charm Beast. Let's go over it really quick. Charm Beast, basically an AoE that charms animals. I mean, it's a usual staple of the Druid, and it's got a fairly, I'd say, a medium-sized AoE here. And that's what it looks like. And we have Dancing Bolt. And this does shock damage. And if you notice how it says below the portrait here on Dancing Bolts, it says attacks reflex. Well, if you're fighting a mob that has high reflex saves, you don't want to necessarily use this ability. That's the cool thing about Pillars of Eternity, and that you check the Cyclopedia as you gain entry against certain creatures, and you can kind of learn which spells are better for attacking them than others. So, like Dancing Bolts, and it is a AoE here, and it decided to cast it. I think anything in that area, it's going to be like Call Lightning, and they're going to get popped with a lightning bolt. Nature's Mark, this one, need to quit clicking them. Nature's Mark, it attacks will, and it basically decreases the enemy's deflection and reflex, and it is an AoE, so it makes them more visible, and it makes it easier to hit. That's it. Obviously, some of them, like some of these abilities, will have an effect on the actual NPCs when you hit them with it, but we're not going to do that today. And then we have Sunbeam, usual Druid spell. It's pretty cool. We've gone through all I can. We ended with Sunbeam. We'll come back to it. We have Autumn's Decay in the level 2 spells. And this is one I like a lot. It's a pretty spell. I like that one a lot. Blizzard's another good one. We're going to try and get a good view of it. It doesn't like this area. I've cast it here before. Hopefully I don't hit any lines. Wish it were longer. Burst of Summer Flame. Oh wait, we need to go over what it does. Blizzard, everyone knows what Blizzard does. Autumn's Decay, I didn't go over that. Does corrode damage and then more over time in anyone in the area. So it's good to fire around your melee combatants to pick, to hit a few people that they're engaged with. Or if you have people, like if you did an AoE knockdown or something with another class, you could pick them off with this, and it does, or with Autumn's Decay, and it does get damage. Burst of Summer, yeah, this does freeze damage. That's pretty obvious, and it slows their attack rate. Sorry. Inflicts burning damage to anyone in the area of effect. Short cast time. So it looks like so. I like that one a lot. Conjure Lesser Blight. Now we're going to have to do this on the side of the screen here, or else it's hard to rest here in a second. Which I've already done once when... this is the second time I've done this video for technical reasons, so... but right there, this is the rain. It's random. It'll be rain, earth, flame, and corrosive, or whatever it is. But this is my favorite one. It's a beautiful one. This one's amazing. But he sticks with your druid pretty good, so and does damage. So there's that one. And now on to level 3. This is Infestation of Maggots. Another thing to point out, like this one attacks fortitude and it says on attack plus 10. A lot of the offensive spells have a plus to accuracy, so that they're more consistent, and I think that's a cool thing, especially since you know, casting spells is a finite resource. Them being more consistent on damage is a good thing. And that's all it looks like. I'm assuming it does more whenever there are enemies in the ring, but I am unsure right now. Brings a powerful storm into being that strikes enemies in the area with periodic bolts of lightning, and that stun and deal shock damage. So basically call lightning, but it is around the caster, which is pretty cool. See, the druid, like if you're gonna play one that gets more melee, that would be a good spell to pop and then switch to animal form or something, or you could do it during animal form. It makes it pretty interesting for build ideas because of the way the druid's set up like that. That's pretty, now that it's nighttime. So we ended with Sunbeam. We move on to Talon's Reach. This one does slash damage in an AoE. It's the same size as Sunbeam, but it does slash damage to all in the area, which is a pretty decent move. It's not a bad move. And now a oldie but goldie for druids, which is basically web, or not web, but entangle, Tanglefoot, which is a pretty good one. This doesn't root like Tangle would in D&D. It actually just hobbles, which I do believe is a snare. But it is a beautiful spell. This is one of my favorites for the druid. It is. I really like this one. Like, it is a lot better than the Infinity Engine versions. I like that. It'll sit there for a second, so we're going to cast these other spells up to the right side of the video here. But Touch of Rot is a corrosive damage spell, and this is one of those that makes the druid interesting for attacking the back line, because it does damage over time to anything that stays in that area. So if you're hitting a stationary target, this is a good spell, especially if they're susceptible to fortitude. An archer might be, or a wizard, or something like a caster class might have a lower fortitude save because they're more caster oriented. So this one's a good one to hit those classes with, especially if they're not moving. And here we are. The initial, this one I've used a good bit when I played. The initial hit's not that big, but if you can keep them sitting there, it does great damage over about 8 or 10 seconds. So that's a good one. I like that one a lot. Now the next two are conal abilities. They aren't typical circular AoEs. They are conal. Sharp Tooth, it does piercing damage, and it potentially sickens anyone in the area of effect, which is a debuff, which is it's a pretty okay thing to have. I do believe sickening makes them weaker on their physical stats, which is a good thing. So Winds of Winter's the same thing, really. Just it's got a winter effect. It kind of looks like you're just shooting a blizzard out of your hands. That's one we might not get to, depending on how combat goes. Autumn's Decay, we already did that. We did up to Lesser Blight. So Firebrand I'll have to show you in combat, as will I with the animal form. But Hold Beasts, this is similar to the Priest Hold spell, except it's an AoE and it only works on animals. But it paralyzes them. The Priest Halt spell only roots them, really. They can still attack you. They can still do actions, they just can't move. This one is a Paralyze, which I'm pretty sure just stuns them. It's not a bad spell effect. Insect Swarm's pretty much what you would expect from an Insect Swarm spell. It does raw damage though, which has me confused. It's one of those things I haven't heard anything about. And if anyone knows about this, definitely comment. But raw damage, like, I mean, I would assume that it doesn't have to bypass a whole lot of DR, if there are any, against the elements. I'm not sure. I do believe there are, though. And it reduces the concentration of anyone in the area. So it's good. It would be good to peg a whole line of casters with this, or even archers. Okay, especially if right now concentration and interrupt are kind of a fickle thing, and there's an argument to be had on both sides. But like, I don't know if no one really understands them. Like, and it's if the two skills that govern that or the two attributes that govern that are the most likely to be dumped by most character builds right now. Even Obsidian has admitted this. Perception and Resolve, a lot of people don't see them as, you know, competing toe-to-toe with Might or Dexterity or Constitution. I mean, that's your health. Or even Intellect, which increases AoE and duration. So it's kind of weird to like, hopefully that reducing concentration on top of you having Interrupt will have a greater effect if that's how you want to play your Druid. Taste of the Hunt I won't be able to show you. It is a targeted ability, but what it does is it does 39.6 raw damage. That's going to be different if you have a different strength, or different might, I'm sorry. And 100% of the damage dealt with that is given back to you as stamina. So it's a pretty cool ability. Woodskin, another oldie but goldie. Woodskin is awesome. It is an AoE, guys. It's a large AoE. And it gives you a lot of damage thresholds versus Pierce, Burn, Shock. I think in terms of this sort of spell that the Druid and the Priest have split damage types. So like Slash, Blunt, and I don't know. I think the Priest gets some spells to offset what the Druid doesn't get, if that makes sense. Like, I'll show you here in a second and I'll get back. Actually, let me go ahead and do that. The Druid gets Purge of Toxins, which stops poison and disease. The Priest gets something similar that stops fear and terror. And they work exactly the same way, except they're different effects that they both defend against, and if you read this, it shortens the duration thereof. Those two effects. So, like, I think they kind of, obviously the two classes are going to be different, but I think it's a neat thing. I think they're going to have different strengths and weaknesses in regards to how they can protect your party, which is very, very awesome. So it would actually mean that they don't overlap that much. The Druid doesn't have nearly as much healing spells or protective spells as the Priest does, but it's more offensive, but when it does have those defense, it seems to not overlap at all with the Priest, which is absolutely a good thing. I showed you those two. I can't show you anything else on here without getting into combat. So on the level 3 spells, we'll show you Spreading Plague is a targetable ability, as is Staghorn. Twin Stones. Twin Stones I can show you. Kind of an odd looking spell for what it's called. The effect's cool, but I don't know if it fits a spell called Twin Stones that says you send 2 deadly boulders flying out from the Druid's position. It doesn't look like 2 deadly boulders. And it's supposed to explode on contact with a physical, or with a solid surface. And I've yet to see that, but, you know, I mean, this is a cliff. I fired it at this tree in the previous attempt at the video and it didn't do anything, so I'm not going to waste the time with it right now. So we're going to rest, and we're going to move back into the other area, or we're going to think about resting. We're going to move back into the other area, and we're going to initiate combat so that we can see Firebrand and a couple of the other spells, maybe the heal and definitely Shapeshift. So, here we go. I don't know why we're all walking, but we're serious. We're gonna go ahead and move the fighter over here. We're going to do a couple things really quick. We're gonna go ahead. Oh, I can't cast a buff. I always forget that I can't cast buffs until I've initiated combat. So we're gonna set the priest up to peg these guys with this. I'm gonna let the mage hit these guys, and the druid we're gonna hit. We're gonna go ahead and cast something. Since we didn't see Winter Wind, I will move forward and try and peg a few people with it. Oh, whoops, I forgot to turn his shield on. It's probably a good thing. And turn on Dirty Fighting. Or, sorry, Reckless. Start hitting these guys with strike. Now see that these guys have kind of posted up against... There you go, that was Winter's Wind right there. Posted up against all of them. I forgot to. And we'll let him get in the melee. Screw it. But since they posted up, I'll show you what Touch of Rod's capable of. Since I went with corrosive damage boost with these guys. That priest. Oh, actually, while we've got the opportunity, let's see Firebrand. Trying not to hit guys. This is like, if you see what I'm doing with the AoEs here, you will get used to that if you are planning on playing a druid, because you'll be doing it a lot. And for some reason, this druid does not want to cast Firebrand. There it is. There's Firebrand right there. And it, you know, but this fight's over. I want to show you Shapeshift. Now, it doesn't have any, like, in-between animations right now, and I'm hoping it will. I mean, it was okay in the Infinity Engine games because they, you know, it was 1998. And everything was cool in 1988. But in this game, it's a little abrupt. I mean, I know they've got limited budget, and I'm not saying that it's bad that they don't have this, but it would make, even if they just had a particle effect that covered your druid and boom, wolf form, it would be better than just snapping to wolf form. So it is what it is. Every form gets a different ability. The wolf, which the wolves in, you know, the early trailer of the first of the opening of the game, that showed the wolves doing knockdowns. So this wolf gets a knockdown. The stag gets like an AOE conal attack, and a lot of his hits are supposed to do AOE because every animal form has something different it focuses on. So this is right now what you tend to see. We got a knockdown. Hopefully, for some reason, werewolf isn't attacking. Oh, werewolf isn't attacking. Shapeshift. Screw this. Let's just everybody. Like, this is one of the reasons I don't really do a lot of combat, is because sometimes these little bugs happen and it ruins things. See, it has something when you transfer back, it has an effect. And that was a little less abrupt than just like what we saw with the wolf form. And it could be because the wolf form's so large that we didn't see it. Because maybe the effect was around the outline of our player, and then when we teleported, the wolf covered that up. I'm not sure. I'm just taking a guess. But having something to show that transition from your humanoid, well, more humanoid form to the wolf form would be something I would like. But all in all, the Druid's a pretty versatile class. And I would say that if you are planning on playing a Druid, it is. I've had a lot of fun. I actually, it was the first class that I played, but it's not the class I'm going to play. I was always going to play a Chanter, which will come much later in these videos. But this particular class is a lot of fun, especially for those that like the class. Unfortunately, Silent Winter, just to give you the heads up, they do not have any animal companions, but they do have Charm Animal, and I know that was something you were looking for, but that's definitely the Ranger's cup of tea, and that's just the way Obsidian set it up. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope I made it as informative as possible. I'm sorry that I didn't have the time to splice a bunch of videos together and show you all these other spells. I should have shown you these two at least, but it's a basic heal, guys. It's not too terribly flashy, but it's a pretty cool one. And if you notice how it does 396 stamina over 10 seconds, the 25% boost on this would make it 7.5 to your main character, so it makes it a little more efficient on him with the nature godlike. It's pretty cool. Anyway, you guys, I hope you enjoyed the video, like I said, and I will catch you. The next video will probably either be the Ranger or the Barbarian, so stay tuned. The next one will come.